Hello everyone, how are you doing? Welcome back to yet another channel YAC on one more YouTube video, and this time it's like a little bit special. So I've figured out something which I think is really useful and for me, and I wanted to share it with all of you. So in the past we have last week we basically went through a bunch of different I would say problems all connected to each other, but we walked through like some solutioning with different problems. First we looked at like defining a problem specification, what is the problem spec, and as part of making useful code. Then we went and said that okay, like let's actually try to build a simple URL translator, and we managed to do that as part of making useful code. And then I kind of walked all of you through my process with, especially for YouTube, with how I organize YouTube workflows with the software that I am using at the moment. And then on the weekend, so Microsoft dropped a couple of releases because of which we were able to make a couple of new videos covering them. One was Docker on desktop is now supporting Kubernetes. So that's actually not a Microsoft thing, but it's like it uses Microsoft products, and it's a company that's based in the Microsoft ecosystem. So I still have it running, so it's actually really cool. The fact that they're able to manage this for a desktop or laptop setup that you might have. This is we discussed why this was like a really interesting move, and this was like game changing in some aspects because it allows you to run containers and workflows based out of containers, basically stateless transformations of your data. Stateless execution environments for transforming your data. So whereas the state would be maintained in an externalized source, either on your hard drive or through APIs in the cloud and so on. So this was actually really cool. And then we covered what Microsoft did, which was dev containers. So the fact that you can actually bring in dev containers to play for something which is, even for, this was Harbor, this was the registry the CNCF registry project. So you can actually see here that like there is dev container support with Microsoft, and they allow you to kind of do a bunch of things automatically, idiomatically as well. So basically automation is good as long as it is helping you perform things idiomatically. So what is idiomatically? Idiomatically is what is an idiom? Idiom is something that you can understand, but it's like unique in a certain way, right? Like I actually don't know how the dictionary defines it. Let me look at what it is. Give the meaning of a word or a phrase. Oh, sorry, I think I looked up the wrong word. And idiom is the word. So idiom is essentially a group of words established by usage as having a meaning not deducible from those of the individual words. So over the moon, see the light, the dialect of a people or part of a country. And so there's like a bunch of these things, a form of expression natural to a language, person or group of people. So what often happens is when things become like really idiomatically aligned, you tend to get these like cohorts of like cultural phenomena. Like for example, what happened with Ruby on Rails. I think there was a lot to do with like an understanding of idiomatic expression of code that bolstered these capability of someone like a regular developer sitting anywhere to be able to understand that idiom and then build on top of that with Ruby on Rails. So I think idioms are quite important in general life, but more specifically in programming. So containers have now become one of those idioms. Like it's like almost like, is it containerized or not? If it's containerized, you have a certain way of dealing with it. If it's not containerized, you have a different way of dealing with the problem. But your choices depend on this idiomatic understanding at every step in the workflow nowadays. So what I did after this was I actually thought about like DevOps in general, and I've been trying to set it up such that I wanted to show you what like an idiomatic programming of DevOps or idiomatic understanding of DevOps might look like if the idiom was an API. So you've heard of everyone has heard of APIs because APIs have been around for a long time. So there's the SOAP API, obviously from the early part of the millennium, which is just 20 years ago, and there is also the there's the REST APIs standards and definitions which actually have taken off for a big deal nowadays. Everyone has heard of Postman and various other companies that were built off the REST interface of protocols. And then you have something like GraphQL, which is now taking off. It's a different kind of an API, but it's still an API, because all of these definitions are defined as an API. So there's a lot of API, usage across the board in computers and in any engineering project, in any technology project, to be more specific. I would even say, like, even your obviously your electricity and a lot of these utilities companies, they run on SCADA, which is also a kind of an API protocol. So APIs are really, really important. But the thing is, if you have to do DevOps, right, what you do in DevOps, it usually looks like this. So this is something where after the video that we had in terms of looking at dev containers and Docker on desktop, I basically went around trying to set up some similar Kubernetes cluster in DigitalOcean. You could do it in any cloud specifically if you wanted to, but like I found DigitalOcean to be the most comparable to Docker on desktop, because I felt like they were on two ends of the spectrum. One is like Docker on desktop is saying, okay, we have a way of running Docker and Kubernetes on your machine, on your desktop, and we want to gather all the developer mindshare. And you have something like DigitalOcean, which is running on the cloud, which is saying that, like, okay, see, we have made it like really easy for you to set up Kubernetes clusters in the cloud, and you shouldn't even have to do anything on your local machine other than using our CLI. The CLI, the doctl CLI, and I think it's not installed here. Let me check up if it is installed in a different machine. Okay, it's not installed on this machine, but they have a CLI which is called doctl, or I don't know doctl. I don't know how they pronounce it actually, because I've never really talked about these things with other people. But so there's a doctl CLI which you can use, and it's a fantastic CLI. It works really well. It's very simple to authenticate. It has a web connected like authentication mechanism, which makes it easy for you to get the token for authentication. And everything is very simple inside the CLI, right? Like, so you have every possible thing that you could do with the product exactly included in the CLI. But the problem is that knowing another CLI, yet another CLI, changes the idiomatic representation for me. As a developer, I am used to certain products, so because I've used them in the past. For example, I used AWS a lot in my previous jobs. So I'm kind of familiar with the AWS CLI, or like the AWS, at least the API a little bit more than, let's say, something like DigitalOcean, which I haven't used it in production. But I would love to host any of my projects personally and so on DigitalOcean, because I've seen other people do that, and I think it's a great use case for certain kinds of applications. So I've set about comparing actually the Docker on desktop and DigitalOcean. But what I ended up was a place where I found something which was, I think, really useful for a lot of you, which is, what does API based DevOps look like? Okay, because I felt like that is the core difference between like Docker on desktop and doctl, which is DigitalOcean Kubernetes implementation. The thing is, it's very easy for Docker to just do the same thing on a cloud machine if they could do it on your local machine. So if they can do it on a machine which you're using every day, then they can virtualize that machine and set up the same environment and set up the same cluster on that machine or a set of machines in the cloud. It's the same thing. I think it's kind of similar for DigitalOcean, they could provide, if they're giving you the CLI, they could provide a version. It's almost like Anthos, so they could provide you a version of the data center to run on your own machine and license that out, and that would support their API, whatever they're saying, in the websites. So the only thing difference between them is who's really ahead in terms of the API, right? Like, so because once you have the API in place, I think you can demo and do a lot of cool things as an engineer, as a developer, and for me personally, as someone who's running a channel where I want to share a large chunk of my life, which revolves around technology. So the most amazing thing that I found out was that DigitalOcean actually has a really good API, and not just the CLI. And many companies, when they have a good CLI, they'll just like mess up the API because there's not enough demand to maintain the API as much as the CLI. But their pacing as a company itself, is a little behind the innovation curve in terms of the market. But it is usually much ahead in terms of the ease of use curve. So that's what I really like about DigitalOcean actually, because if there's some new feature that dropped into Kubernetes, they won't immediately move and just put that into their production environments. It'll go through some process before it kind of comes to hit production, and during that process what they do is they really refine the API. So they started out with just droplets, and why do you need anything other than droplets, and then they went from there. So I think it's a really amazing cloud. I think it's like really useful for a lot of developers who are starting out. It's very easy to use. I think in terms of ease of use, I think Google Cloud and Azure are comparable, but not for the same use cases though. I think you would probably find more heavy duty use cases on those clouds, but this is quite amazing to get started with. Now the thing is, DigitalOcean actually has an amazing API, and you can actually, not only they have an amazing API, but they actually have a place where you can download it off from, just so that, because APIs are defined using some spec. So if you look at their GitHub repo, you will see that this is the API documentation. This is the API documentation, and you can see that in GitHub they have an amazing I think I cloned this, but I'm not able to find where it is right now. Yeah, so I forked it, sorry, I didn't clone it. So yeah, so this is the OpenAPI specification, and it's a language agnostic standard for RESTful APIs. The most amazing thing is you can download this OpenAPI spec. Okay, so then you'll get a file which is like this. When you open it, it actually looks like this. So this is what a spec for OpenAPI looks like. So there are various standards for an API, but like so OpenAPI is one of those documentation standards. There's also like the Postman collection format, and then there's like a bunch of others. But like OpenAPI is kind of well adopted for version file systems, for versioning the API on your file system. So let's take a look at like what this API looks like when you actually put it into a usable API tool, like Postman. So this is where we are branching out into something new. So I've always wanted like an API first DevOps environment, because when we are doing site reliability engineering, or when you're working on like a higher order problem in DevOps, then you need to have like very solid base and very solid footing as a product, or as a company, or as like, let's say just as a open source project, where you can rely upon what you've built upon. So if you're building something or an app or something and you're putting it on DigitalOcean, you will probably be confident, you should be feeling really good that they have an amazing spec for their OpenAPI. And the next thing is, I set out to see what an API first definition of DevOps might look like. So like, I don't want to have that idiomatic load of remembering like 100 command line tools and then like 100 other cloud-based tools, and their logins and their passwords, and then their like how they're all connected to each other, and the flow chart. And so let's keep it really simple. I know how to, let's say a developer or an engineer has like one skill set, which is they know what an API is, and they know that these tools also have APIs. Using these two facts, what else can you build? There's only two facts. So, but what can you build with that? So I think this is quite amazing, because I managed to get this API working in Postman, and I couldn't really find a lot of DevOps tools that have APIs on Postman. But I was able to get this DigitalOcean API spec working with Postman, and it was amazing. So the way I did it was, I'll just show you here, and I'll actually what I've done already, and then I'll show you how I did it, so that you can do this with your own DevOps tools that you use online. So a lot of tools have APIs. So for example, Terraform has like 3 ways of using the tool. So Terraform provides an API for a subset of features. They also have an SDK, and they have a command line tool, and they mostly suggest people to use the command line tool. But actually, I find that the API would be more useful, because there's a lot of things that the command line tool doesn't do for you. For example, if you want to validate a Terraform configuration while you're coding it, you have to install yet one more plugin, or yet another plugin in Visual Studio Code, and then that may not be the same performance or guarantees or like functionality as the CLI tool. So their API is there, but it's not really used as much as it should be. So if you look at this DigitalOcean API, since API is the idiom here, we are going to talk in idiomatic terms, and we'll make sure that like we can compare on idiomatic terms. Now Terraform might get the job done without using the API, but that's not really a scalable way for somebody like an engineer to remember and work on things on like multiple projects. So what I did was, I actually imported the DigitalOcean API here via the OpenAPI tool that they suggest, that they have provided here as part of their documentation, and the most amazing thing is that this thing actually works as advertised. Like that's all you need to have when you are following idioms, right? Like it works. So if I go to account and I say get user information, and then I've created like 2 environments here. One is like a mock environment, and then one is an actual environment. So the mock environment is basically a way for me to test the DigitalOcean API with the examples that they have provided. So with an API, you can actually provide certain examples. So you can see that they have provided some examples here, which says that it actually has different kinds of errors on it. Like for example, there's a JSON object keyed on account with an excerpt of the current user account data. So they have like certain examples here that show how that particular API is used, and if there are issues with that API. So what I have done is, in the V2 environment, I've actually logged in with my own data set, like my own user access key, and I'll just show you like how it's working. So you just hit the send button. So we are hitting the base URL, which is the which in the environment I've configured the base URL to be the api.digitalocean.com, and in this you can actually see that it's showing me the droplet limit, that I have 10 droplets that I can run at any time. I have a floating IP limit, I have a volume limit, I have an email, this is my UUID, and my email has been verified, status is active, so status message, nothing. So you have like so many other components that are present, but you're not usually exposed through the UI. And DigitalOcean is amazing because you can actually get I think their UI also works on the API, so that's the only reason why they have maintained the API really so well. So you can actually even run visualizations, which I won't cover in this video, but you can actually do visualizations on the data you're getting back from the cloud. Like you can actually see node pool level CPU usages and stuff like that from your Kubernetes machines through their monitoring API and also the visualization tool in Postman. So there's a lot of stuff here. So for example, I can list all the Kubernetes clusters that are running, list available regions. First, let's list all the available regions, node sizes, and versions of Kubernetes. So this is all part of their Open API spec. So you can actually see that they have, these are the names and these are the slugs for like each of their locations, and you have Bangalore as BLR1. That's where I'm running my Kubernetes cluster. And there's also like there's also like actions that you can take. So you can actually, for example, create a new cluster all from the API. Now I won't do this here because this might require me to put in certain parameters and secrets, but like it's kind of fine. You can see all the Kubernetes clusters that are already running. Yeah, so these are the details of the cluster that I'm already running here, and these are the node pool details. This is amazing because I can actually manipulate the JSON in a much more easier way. I can actually do, so for example, it appears like the surge upgrade is false, registry enabled is false. So that might impact like potentially, by looking at the words, it seems like I won't be able to put in containers from wherever I want into the machine. So it's kind of locked down as a cluster to default security measures. So it's actually really, you can even taint the nodes, and then all the pod data, like all the application data that's running on your cluster will be automatically moved to a non-tainted node. So I think there's like a lot of use cases here. I think this is amazing, and I would love like more people to kind of use this. Check out like my balance. You can even see like what's my balance. I have to pay them $3.25. So I hope they give me some discount, because I'm trying really hard to show something that I've done really well online. So maybe as a good Samaritan, they should give me some discount. But as of now, the DigitalOcean API says that I owe them $3.25. Oh, but they didn't mention the currency. So that API is actually incorrect, because based on my location, if I'm receiving this, then it's 3.25 rupees that I need to pay them. I don't know. So it's just funny, but it's they should also add the currency to the API. But the default, I'm assuming, is dollars. So there's like specifically US dollars. So it's quite amazing, right? So you can actually see all your projects, you can list all the projects, you can create a project, you can do so many things here. Let's see what happens when you post this. Update. Okay, so let's see what is going on with the website here. Okay, so you have the same data here. You can see that like there is the Kubernetes cluster that I was running over here. You can access, like, look at the number of clicks. It's basically like I'm not even touching the keyboard, unless I have to give some data that which is available only on the keyboard. But it's like really easy to set up whatever you need, and then because it's so easy, and that you have confidence and trust, because that you can always go back to Postman and figure things out if there's some issue, you can actually focus on your work, and that's what is really useful. So this is the traditional Kubernetes dashboard. But tell me, like, as a developer or an engineer, if you're relying on Kubernetes for your daily work, and this is the interface, I think this is also an idiomatic interface. It's only shared between the default Kubernetes installations. It's not available, let's say, and in fact there is innovation happening in this space. So if you don't like this dashboard, you should probably go and check out Rancher, which I also tried out, which was pretty good, but I think they have some configuration issues in terms of like configuring them easily onto clusters. So this is a better version of the Kubernetes dashboard that can do a lot more things. But I think by default, if you look at the API, this is all I need, to have confidence. So in fact, they have an API which tells you the neighbors of which of your droplets are actually neighbors. So I have only one droplet, but apparently they have a preference or something like that for creating neighbors. So if you have like 3-4 droplets, they'll put them on the same machine or something, which is why they have this API. So that's what I'm guessing. They've not like openly said, but this is what the API says. So this kind of like phrases, right? Like these are the definitions of the APIs. These phrases are the idioms. So anyone who knows the language, and you can translate this into any language you want. You can use Google Translate and translate this into any language you want, and it will be meaningful and understanding. So this composition of these idioms into a well-functioning product is what of 198 independent API requests, potential requests, is what DigitalOcean has done over the past few years, and this is their this is their defensibility. They feel like they're better better for developers because of this, and I really urge that you try this out, because just being able to do everything via an API, and if you want to manipulate stuff, you want to create a new CDN, in one click you can just put in Postman the key name, value, description as per the API definition and go for it. Because there wasn't a very good Postman based definition of the API, I actually made one and I wanted to share that as well. So I think it's somewhere here. So this is basically like a documentation of the DigitalOcean API on Postman. So so you can actually see and generate code. You can do code generation. So let me see if I can open it here. So you can just click around the API, and if you are writing some code, you can just take the interface code for the implementation of the interface for interacting with Kubernetes on DigitalOcean. You can take that as a single piece of code from here and put it into your code and to focus on your product. So this is the web interface for Postman. Yeah, so the authorization happens via this bearer token. So there's one token that you need to set, and then everything is done. I've kind of like made it into a variable for the environment, so that you can put in your own token and it should function exactly the same. Let me actually see. So this is designed as a collection, So typically, what would happen is you would definitely have a collection for the base API that you've been working with, but you also want to have a collection of the activities that you do. So you could take like individual aspects of this collection of DigitalOcean, and then you can enable a single collection wherein you are running through your daily workflow. So every day morning when you go to work, you can boot up a cluster, or like you can boot up a sample experimental cluster based on the kind of code that you're working, test it out, or you can work with your shared company cluster or shared job related like Kubernetes cluster. So it's super easy and convenient, right? So I think this is like pretty useful, and you can actually do code generation with like different languages. So let's say I want to generate I think my system is a little slow, so I have no idea why their interface seems to be a little bit like, it's confusing, but it's not confusing at the same time. So let me just open an API. So this is the web API, right? It's not going to work here because the environment is in my local machine here. So, but I would urge you to basically check this out, and I think it's really yeah. So I think this is really good, and it's one of those. It's like, imagine if every DevOps product had this. I think there's, especially Azure. I think Azure should definitely have an API first workflow, because they have a lot of products which are really good, and you can use them from their dashboard. But from the CLI, it's like, again, a lot of things to remember and a lot of habits to learn again. So I think there's a new collection that Microsoft has launched, which is called Microsoft Graph. So I'm actually looking forward to trying out that and seeing how that would impact workflows. So So if they have I think the Microsoft Graph Postman collection. Let me see. Yeah, so I think this is where we should watch out for. Yeah, so they have a Microsoft Graph Postman collection, and I think Azure is going to be part of this. So like, let's go and take a look at this in some other video. But basically, for now, you can definitely go check out DigitalOcean and their Open API, and I think it will be amazing to play around with the API as API first DevOps, and that should be your motto if you're a DevOps engineer today, and hopefully that will give us enough knowledge and scalability to build out an API first SRE and site reliability engineering tooling as well, because one of the challenges has been to integrate with a lot of tools which could interact with each other but don't. So this provides an opportunity for us to do that. So everyone, please go and check this out. I think this is like amazing. It's really something that I feel we should all thank DigitalOcean and Postman for making this possible. Okay, then I don't know anybody at DigitalOcean, so like I'm just like happy that this exists and this works. So thank you so much. Okay, everyone. Hope you have a good day ahead, and we'll talk again sometime later this week. Thank you.